welcome in, everybody. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Make it legendary. And this is your Monday edition of Beyond the Box Score, advanced stats from simple people. We've got a lot of things to talk about today. Tetairoa McMillan is now wide receiver 18 per game. He went from wide receiver 35 per game to 18 per game in 1 week. Nico Collins has been a lot better with Davis Mills. Is that a matchup thing? Is that a Mills thing? Is that a pass attempts thing? We'll give you the numbers there. The Bucs offense, the Packers offense, the Chiefs offense, all that and more. Good morning, Jacob. Good afternoon, Jacob. That's for you. It's morning, I guess. What's up?
Yeah, it's still morning. Just finished my coffee. I'm trying to rebound here. It was a really rough week for fantasy. We got the news that Drake London and Michael Penix both are real banged up. Right before we hopped on here, my Chiefs lost. Not doing great, but happy to be here talking with you guys today.
Happy to have you. Dan's laughing at your misery.
It's schadenfreude because I also am miserable myself, so you can laugh back. I mean, I woke up to news yesterday from Jay Glazer, who was the only one to report the Odell Beckham trade back in the day when it happened, and he basically said after it, I will only report something if it's closest to fact as can be, that Matt Nagy and Arthur Smith are on the short list for Giants head coaching candidates. And after hearing that, Adam, nothing could improve for the rest of my day.
Yeah, that's not very good. But neither is the Eagles offense, and neither was the Lions offense last night in a 16-9 game. So that's where we're gonna start. Now, I think one thing worth pointing out, I'm going to give you the number of quarterbacks that have scored 20 or more fantasy points in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues week by week.
Okay.
15, 20, only 9 in week 3. 15, 16, 17, 12, 14, 16, 13. Remember, we're into buys now. So typically we're around 14, 15. So far this week, we've had 5. It's been a horrible week for quarterbacks. At most, we'll have 7. And I've got to think that the weather had something to do with this. It was really windy in the Northeast, including in this game last night. Philadelphia 16, Detroit 9. Either that or it's just a bad week for quarterbacks, but it's especially bad. Jacob, your takeaways from the Eagles and Lions.
So definitely wanted to talk about the Lions because there were some changes. This is just the second game of Dan Campbell calling plays. I didn't want to overreact to last week's game. Last week, like pre-snap motion was up for the Lions. Play action was up for the Lions. But those are both affected by game script. Your teams are more likely to use both of those when playing with a lead. So this week we saw a completely opposite game script, and there was not nearly as much play action, especially with the way that the Eagles were just wrecking their front. They didn't have time for it, really. But the motion rate was up again, 69%. So that's the highest rate on the year for the Lions. So I think that's a real change. Another change was they used 3 receivers 91% of the time, which is way up from anything we've seen in the past. I think that's mostly a Sam Laporta note. But with Laporta on the IR, that's more... not anything fantasy relevant necessarily, but more playing time for Isaac Tesla and a little bit more for the freaking Dan. I freaking forget his name every single time. I can't. Khalif Raymond. For some reason, my brain wanted to say Greg Dortch. Jahmyr Gibbs, though, this is the most fantasy relevant takeaway I had, was that the role changed for Jahmyr Gibbs. It was a season high snap rate. It was actually the highest snap rate and route rate that Gibbs has logged in a healthy David Montgomery game, career high 100 plus receiving yards. So that was all really, really good.
Yeah. I mean, look, you cannot start your week going, I'm going to start David Montgomery this week. It's just, he is not reliable. He's had 2 big games. One of them was had a long run at the Ravens. One of them, he had that big game at Cincinnati with his family in attendance. And other than that, even if he scores, you're talking about 11, 12-ish points. So, and then when it's bad, it's really bad for Montgomery.
They're just not running the ball like they had in the past. They don't have the same dudes up front. And one of my takeaways from this game on the Lions side of the ball, real quick, is let's do a little thought experiment. Yesterday's game, Amon-Ra St. Brown had the 5th highest drop percentage of any wide receiver in any single game this season at just under 16%. With what we know about Amon-Ra St. Brown, what does that tell us? We know this isn't a guy who drops passes. What it tells us is when we get these kind of games, we're going to get a lot of these as we roll forward through the next 6 weeks of fantasy football, whatever it is, into the playoffs. At Philly, night game, 30 degrees, winds whipping the entire game. We just can't expect fantasy production. This happened now 2 weeks in a row. The Packers, Eagles, the Lions, Eagles. This is not a matchup thing. Yeah, these defenses played well, especially the Eagles defense. They're playing very well. This is a weather issue. I just want to point that out because I'm looking at my schedules. I'm looking for the dome teams. I'm looking for the teams that play south. And I'm not looking at like these games are going to hurt us in fantasy over and over and over again. You saw how Jared Goff threw the football. That was the worst he looked all season throwing the football by far. It's no surprise. It's super cold and windy. So just keep that in mind as you look forward on your schedule. And if you're looking to make trades before your deadline, I'd be looking into the wind and the weather as we move forward in some of these night games in Philly or wherever we're going to be playing them.
Yeah, and that's why I pointed out the Bears on Wednesday's show as having a schedule that was mostly outdoors in cold weather. Unfortunately, you can't exactly sell high on them because they just laid an egg in Minnesota. But it's going to happen. It's unfortunate. This week was kind of an extreme. If you somehow sat Lamar Jackson, who actually was only started in 90% of leagues, which is pretty damn low for Lamar Jackson. Well, you were amazing. He scored 4.7 fantasy points. But if you sat Josh Allen, well, he's had six touchdowns and 48.7 fantasy points. Yeah. So it is hard to predict. But this was a tough week with win for sure. Okay, over the last 3 weeks, here are the wide receiver stats for Detroit. Jamison Williams, 14 catches. Amon-Ra St. Brown, 16 catches. Jamison Williams, 273 yards. St. Brown, 197 yards. Williams, 3 touchdowns. St. Brown, 1. St. Brown does have 13 more targets, though, and he has all 3 of Detroit's end zone targets. He has 6 of their 12 red zone targets over the last 3 games. Obviously, we're taking St. Brown over J-Mo, but J-Mo is obviously a big topic conversation here, and I talked about on Wednesday. He does so much better when they're under center and they're running play action. Yep. He only had 1 target this game that was under center play action, and it was his touchdown catch, which was a long one. What was it, 30-something yards?
Yeah, a little inbreaker the housed.
Yeah, but anyway, I picked up Jamison Williams 3 weeks ago. Someone dropped him going into his bye. And I believe I've sat him all 3 weeks. I have not had faith in him. Obviously, we know what's going to happen when I finally start him next week. He's going to be bad.
I think I saw you ask before yesterday's games, am I going to play Jamison Williams or Pearsall? So I guess you went with Pearsall.
Michael Wilson or Pearsall.
Oh, who'd you go with?
I asked Twitter, and 63% said Michael, or 69% or something said Ricky Pearsall.
So you went with Twitter?
I started Michael Wilson.
Let's go.
Good for you, Adam. There you go.
That was like a 30-something point difference. But anyway, who's buying Jamison Williams? Sell high, ride it out. What do you think on J-Mo?
It feels like, honestly, I've been really nervous to invest in J-Mo, but I feel like everything is set up really well here with the Sam Laporta injury too. I was just looking that up. He has a 14.7% target per route run rate with Laporta on the field compared to 19.7% with Laporta off of the field. So that's a pretty substantial increase. And then also with it seeming like Dan Campbell, even before the Laporta injury, was intent in like getting Williams the ball more, getting him some of these horizontal looks that we've seen in each of the past 2 weeks. Feels really good right now.
He's a buy for me. And I don't really want to be this guy, but I am becoming the weather truther in fantasy football, and I will stand by it because I do believe in it. Every single game for the rest of the season, not including week 18, where hopefully your league doesn't run through, is a dome game for the Lions. So that's a really good sign for this offense.
Wow. That's awesome.
This season has just been like snip, snap, snip, snap. Like, so seriously, man, like we're like, it looks terrible for J-Mo. Now he's back. And it's not just him, it's everybody. It's Tetairoa, McMillan. Like, it's so many people are going to talk about it.
I know. Tetairoa, McMillan. I think the stat Adam opened the show with is just so hilarious to me. Like, he was wide receiver 4 per game before this, like a bad pick. And now it's like, oh, wait a second. He's a mid wide receiver 2 on the season. But I think that also speaks to what you said earlier, Adam, about just as we're trending toward the end of the season into the cold weather, we're really losing a lot of passing production overall.
Well, Tetairoa McMillan, we'll get to him later, but he's averaging 13.9 PPR fantasy points per game. That makes him wide receiver 18 per game in full PPR, 13.9.
Not even good.
13.9. Where would that have ranked the previous 3 seasons?
Yeah, let's hear it.
At the end of the season, not at the end of week 11. Wide receiver 21 per game, 24 per game, and 30 per game.
Yep.
So also, I have a lot to say about McMillan. I'm not fully buying in, right? It's more about Bryce Young. Has nothing to do with McMillan, but Bryce Young just set a franchise record yesterday. But
yeah.
All right. We're going to talk about the Eagles quickly here. And before we do that, it is time for football with BetMGM. Register with BetMGM to get instant access to the best variety of parlay selection features, no sweat and boost tokens, live betting options, and much more. New players can receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets with bonus code FANTASY if they don't win their first bet. You don't want to miss out on any of the hard-hitting action at BetMGM. Place your money line, parlay bets, and more today. BetMGM, make it legendary. All right, I honestly am so sick and tired of talking about the stupid Eagles. This is not a Giants thing. I'm rooting for the Eagles in fantasy because I have a lot of Eagles, and I expected them to have a great offense. Well, guess what? Their offense is garbage. They are 22nd in points per game and 25th in yards per game. Opportunities have been there most of the year for A.J. Brown, most of the year for Saquon Barkley, and they are not doing enough with their opportunities. So I can't stand it anymore. I'm done having hope. I've been the optimist on them, and I'm not saying I'm sitting them, but I'm just done. I'm done thinking, oh, it's going to turn around. They're going to be great. No, I can't feel that way anymore. But Dan, how do you feel?
I mean, there's some hope from a schedule standpoint, right? They get the Raiders, the Bills failing defense, and the Commanders with 3 of their last 4 games. That's
Cowboys next week.
And the Cowboys next week, though I think the Cowboys defense will be considerably better with Logan Wilson and Quinnen Williams in the middle of that defense. I think it's going to be a massive change. And Overshown is coming back, their star linebacker who was injured. So that's 3 great players to add to that defense, in my opinion. Maybe Wilson will not say great. But, the fantasy playoffs is great. It's Raiders, it's Commanders, it's Bills. They're all outdoors, though. I mean, just to speak to that, what
happened, Truther?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's like the holdback for me. But the worst part of this Eagles offense moving forward for a fantasy standpoint has to be the Liz Frank injury for Lane Johnson. I don't know when he'll recover from that, if he'll recover from that. We don't know the grade of the injury, but Liz Franks are really tough to play through. And if they lose Lane Johnson on an offensive line that already wasn't blocking well this year for Barkley, and really a scheme that I don't want to say feels broken, but it really does, right? Like, it just feels like nothing is easy for this offense at any time.
Yeah. Great call.
It's hard to find confidence even with the schedule.
Jacob, we've talked so much about Barkley and Brown, but what about Hurts? 2 bad games in a row for him. And man, can you imagine if Barkley scores that touchdown, they don't overturn it, and we don't get the touchdown? Then we're talking about 8-ish fantasy points for Hurts. But he's actually overall, he's QB 4 per game and 4 point, QB 6 per game and 6 point. And he was always very consistent, but 2 bad games in a row for Hurts. Concerns?
A little bit, yeah. Lane Johnson is the biggest one. I think Dan nailed it, really.
Yeah. All right. Listen, I don't want to be. I mean, it's every week with the Eagles, so I think we should move on and talk about some other topics. I think you're pretty much going to just keep starting these guys for the most part. But if you haven't lowered your expectations yet, probably making a mistake. Granted,
they
were playing
like a desperation. So you'll desperately start Devontae Smith because what are your other options at wide receiver 3 or flex? But you don't know when you're getting the points.
Okay. All right. Let's get into some news and notes. But first, tell us what's coming up on Beyond the Box Score after this commercial break. Sorry, we're going to take a commercial break. Then we'll tell you what's coming up on Beyond the Box Score this week. Then we'll give you all the news. There's a lot of news. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS and Paramount Plus. So even if you can't count on accurate expiration dates,
that is a rookie mistake,
or people appreciating your fashion sense,
Jim, the crowd is not on board here.
You can always count on Sundays with the NFL on CBS, streaming on Paramount Plus.
Glad we wear our good jerseys.
Yeah. Beyond the Box Score, Tuesday, we are going to give you league winners. So we're kind of locking in flag plant kind of calls. We've done some who might be the rookie wide receiver league winners, whatever. This is looking at every position. We're going to do this with our waiver wire show. Dude, I feel like Kenneth Gainwell might be a league winner, weirdly. So we're going to go off the wall with a few picks there, try to help you for anybody who still has an active trade deadline, or even just, players like Gainwell you might be able to pick up. And so we'll do some kind of deep dives on player profiles. And then Wednesday will be more of a broader view of usage and all of that, how things have shifted over the past month for all these teams.
Okay. Sounds good. All right, here we go. Everybody sit down, get comfortable. Here come your news and notes.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah, a lot of them. Michael Penix could be out for the season with a knee injury. Kirk Cousins made one start earlier this year, and he scored 7.1 fantasy points against the Dolphins.
Oof.
Threw for 173 yards. Aaron Rodgers has a fractured wrist. There's a slightly broken bone in his wrist. We haven't gotten an update on his timetable. Bryce Young played through an ankle injury. We'll see how he's doing this week. Dylan Gabriel is in the concussion protocol. Kevin Stefanski said he's going to be the starting quarterback when he's healthy. But we'll see. If Shedeur Sanders goes out and has a big game, maybe that changes.
Did you guys see the greatest 3rd and 10 conversion in the history of the NFL last night from Shedeur Sanders?
What is going on there?
She loves him. I don't know what it is. It's very funny to watch it all unfold.
I'm not going to bring it up.
I know.
But it's just, if you're on Twitter, if you know, I guess.
Yeah.
Jordan Love's got a sore left shoulder, but he says he can play through it. And I think the other one was the Jets, right? So they were going to Tyrod Taylor.
Yep.
They are benching Justin Fields.
We talked about Jacobs' injury. Okay.
Running backs, here we go. So the good news, well, I guess actually for fantasy managers is not good news, but Ramondre Stevenson's going to practice this week. They're at the Bengals, great matchup. And good chance he's back this week. Josh Jacobs, knee injury. Jalen Warren left with an injury as well. So, and Basil Tootin is also injured.
Is there an update yet on Tootin? Because I did see he was speaking to the media after the game, but they didn't ask him about the injury. Did you see anything, Jacob?
I haven't seen an update. It doesn't feel like a serious injury the way that they've treated it.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of the media, that's a good thing. All right. So who's a bigger priority for you, or will it just depend on the timetable? Because Josh Jacobs doesn't have a season-ending injury. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a long-term thing. I don't know about Jalen Warren, but Emmanuel Wilson or Kenneth Gainwell?
I would go with Gainwell. We've seen him produce some pretty electric results. He's got the receiving, and the schedule is really nice too over the next month. So if he's in there for the next month, I think he's going to give you a lot of points, help give you this push to the stretch run, and potentially play well. I feel like he's played well enough in spurts that he could work his way into a like flex type of role potentially, especially if they want to like keep Warren healthy for the end of the season here. And then Green Bay, like I think Emmanuel Wilson's a great pickup, especially like based off the usage after the Jacobs injury. But their line's really banged up. And so that's kind of where I'm at with them is like, they've got kind of I remember Dan and I looked at Jacobs and we're like, he's probably going to continue to be a top 8 guy, but he's not somebody I would necessarily buy because of like the offensive line play and the schedule rest of season. And so if we're getting like a diminished version of that, it's great to have a, potential like plug-in starter, but it's not something I'm like super, super excited about.
I think that's a great point by Jacob. If you think about it, yeah, Emmanuel Wilson's usage was amazing, but we should be torching. I mean, he should have been torching. It's the Giants' run defense. It's the worst in the NFL. And not only is it the worst in the NFL, it's like I saw some numbers from Doug Analytics today. It's like reaching historic levels of bad. You're not going to get the Giants' run defense. You can get the Vikings next week. You're going to get a division match against the Lions, who play Shepard runs a defense that's very, it's tough against the run. You got Bears, Broncos, Bears again.
Bears are really interesting. They've been either one of the worst matchups they've been a bad matchup when linebacker TJ Edwards has played, and they've been one of the best matchups when Edwards has been out, which has been most of the season, including recent weeks. But I think if you just look at Gainwell's next 2 games, let's just say Jacobs and Warren are out for 2 games. Gainwell's next 2 games are so much better on paper than Wilson's next 2 games. Gainwell gets at Chicago, assuming they don't have TJ Edwards, and then Buffalo. There's horrible run defense.
Yep.
And as you already said, it's Minnesota and Detroit. Minnesota's been really inconsistent. Detroit has a legitimately good run defense, so it seems. All right, Amari DiMercato also left with an injury. Wide receiver Drake London has a PCL injury. So he is going to be out this week and possibly longer.
And just so people know a little context on it, this is the same injury that Brock Bowers and Ricky Pearsall suffered earlier this year. Obviously, they had different degrees of injury and they missed different amounts of time. Pearsall basically missed almost all of his season, and Brock Bowers tried to play, then just couldn't play and missed a bunch of games. So I'm not hopeful it's going to be like a 1-week thing.
And then Calvin Ridley's out for the season. We're waiting to see if Jamar Chase is going to get suspended for spitting at Jalen Ramsey, even though he didn't spit at Jalen Ramsey.
They have to. If they caught him on camera, they got to suspend him, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Kayshon Boutte is going to practice this week. Chimere Dike bruised his chest, and that's about it. Tyler Higbee ankle. We mentioned the Eagles. So Cam Jurgens also left that game late.
Yep.
I don't know if he's okay. I haven't seen anything on him. But they couldn't even push yesterday at the end.
Finally.
What is happening here? And Cleveland lost their left tackle, Cam Robinson, in the first half. I don't know the severity there. Defensively, whatever. All right, let's get into snap counts. I'm not going to go through that stuff. Snap counts and other stats. Jacob, take it away, sir. What stood out to you in week 11?
Yeah, so I've got a bunch. So at any point, if you want to get in here and talk about something to break it up, that's great.
Okay.
So Bryce Young, we've got to start there. Obviously, everybody saw the result, but just a couple things I wanted to point out was first, we finally got the peripherals for Tetairoa and McMillan mattering. So it's probably been maddening if you were somebody who was believing in Tetairoa and McMillan with me this year to hear me just be look at this stat. He looks like a top 5 receiver. Look at this stat. He's up here with all these elite names. This is why that stuff is pointed out, is because if we ever see the underlying passing volume there to facilitate it, then this type of underlying stuff for T-Mac could extrapolate to really big numbers. And that's what we saw here. 448 passing yards. What the heck? That's obviously unprecedented for Bryce. We pointed out a couple of weeks ago that he had only 2 games with more than 300 passing yards in his career, which was the same as Andy Dalton as a Panther. And Andy Dalton had only, 6 starts or whatever. This was number 3, and it was 448 yards. And the previous high against this Atlanta Falcons defense was 259 yards from Drake May. This was not only the first one over 300, it was 448 yards. And so that's insane. It was all of talk about snip snap. It was all the stuff that we've seen from Bryce Young in the past that's made us so excited for him. It was here. It was the downfield stuff. It's all this driving to the perimeter, making throws against pressure, against the blitz, against this aggressive defense that plays out a single high. He burned them for that. And so I just couldn't believe that we got this performance. I guess I can, but it's just I've walled off the belief in Bryce because I don't want to keep being disappointed in it. I was just okay, enough of this. Bryce is not going to work at the NFL, and then he does this, and it's just all right, I have no idea.
Look, I think that this might be Russell Wilson in week 2 throwing for 450 yards against the Cowboys, and 2 weeks later he's benched. Now Bryce Young's not going to get benched unless he's hurt because he is playing with this ankle injury now. But career high in yards, franchise record, 10 yards per attempt. I believe his previous career high was 8.2 yards per attempt or something like that. So 10 yards per attempt after 3 straight games, averaging 5.5 or fewer yards per attempt. So he was almost twice as good as he has been. Yeah. I feel like he had been so bad that regression was coming. And I made the comparison yesterday on the show. By the way, this is supposed to be our first buy or sell topic. We'll just get into McMillan now. But what happened with McMillan, I'm really hopeful that it can happen with Justin Jefferson because JJ McCarthy's obviously not that good. But I don't think he's this bad. I don't think he's going to throw for 150 yards every week. Eventually, things are going to click just because of blind luck or just because of, law of averages. So I think that's what happened with McMillan. And I know you guys are dying to get in. So last point I'll make on McMillan here, right? So he goes from, as we said, he was wide receiver 35 per game 2 days ago. Now he's wide receiver 18 per game. And I compared him to the rookie seasons of Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson. And they were also around 13 PPR fantasy points per game, something like that. They were also around 140 targets, 82-ish catches, 1,150 yards, 3 or 4 touchdowns. They had very similar seasons. But week 2, Garrett Wilson scored 30 points. Yeah, Garrett Wilson had 3 massive games that year. But at the end of the year, he was held back by a bad offense and finished as wide receiver 30 per game. Chris Olave had 1 or 2 huge games. So I guess I'm just not buying into this second half breakout here for McMillan because of Bryce Young. So that's, and I have one last thing to say, but I'll save it to the end. Go ahead.
Should we do the good cop or bad cop first? Because I know where both Jacob and I are going to stand on this one.
Yeah, I want to hear from Dan because, we talked about this last week and he was I'm just kind of ready to move McMillan down, it's not happening. There's not even Tez Johnson and players like that. I could see how it could happen for them. I don't really see how it could happen for T-Mac, so I'm moving them ahead of him rest of season, which I think is fair and where most people had arrived. The point I gave is just like, I'm being stubborn about leaving him this high because we know he's this good. And if anything were to change, then it could end up giving us numbers down the stretch. I couldn't have predicted this. So yeah, I am definitely curious where you're at after like finally seeing it. We at least saw it come to fruition one time.
So just to be clear, and I like when Jacob and I disagree. We agree on a lot of fantasy stuff, so it's good to find a disagreement. My assessment of Tetairoa McMillan for fantasy has literally nothing to do with him as an individual player. I think he is awesome at football. Now, as far as moving forward, I haven't yet studied this tape, but I saw a breakdown, and that breakdown showed some really, really, really bad coverage busts by the Atlanta Falcons, who I think at this point are really struggling on the defense side of the ball. I think everything you know about the Falcons defense from a matchup standpoint in fantasy, throw it out. I think down the stretch, you are looking to target them in fantasy football. They are going to give a lot of points in the passing game, especially now that Cousins is on the field, and they're going to be punting a lot. With that said, I think the matchup played a big role in this because from my assessment of the Panthers and why I've been so worried about McMillan, it has almost everything to do with their pass protection and not as much to do with Bryce. But if you're playing a team like Jacob just outlined, playing a lot of single high and pressuring a lot because they're playing a lot of single high, that gives Bryce Young an advantage because he can catch the snap and he can identify the space that they're going to be affording him down the field and throw. That was what he was best at Alabama, anticipating space and throwing into space. But when you're facing a team that's going to only rush 4 and drop 7 into coverage, which is what most teams have done against Bryce Young, that offensive line cannot pass protect against even a 4-man rush. So you're wasting guys, in my opinion, by blitzing him because you could be sending him in coverage. And when that's the case, that's why you saw the 5.5 yards per attempt and all those checkdowns that you mentioned, Adam. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is only the second time Bryce Young has eclipsed 200 passing yards this year. Is that right, Adam? Yeah. Is there any way you can look that up?
Almost positive you're right. Yeah.
So this is only the second game of 2, let alone 300 or whatever it may be. So I look forward at the schedule. We've got 49ers in San Fran. Maybe that's going to be okay. I don't know. Rams is going to be a disaster game for him, in my opinion, in Carolina. Saints should be good. Bucs defense is failing, but it's a very interesting bag because then you got Seahawks in the final week of the season in the fantasy championship for McMillan. I don't really think he'll produce against the Rams or Seahawks. Maybe he can find some way against these other teams, but I don't know. It's not something I can buy right now.
Okay, I've one. I'm going to spin it positive, right?
Okay.
Because Bryce Young has had, I believe, 3 games with more than 30 pass attempts. And that's obviously a problem. They are 6-5. They want to run the ball as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But his 3 games were 2 losses and this overtime win. And when you look at who they've beaten, and when you like, they've had, they beat the teams like that they're kind of supposed to beat, but look at who's left on their schedule. You just said that the teams, but like I think they're going to be trailing in a lot of these games. San Francisco, the Rams, the Buccaneers. So you might get 35-ish. I mean, that's a lot because he's averaging about 30 pass attempts per game. If you can get 35 a game and you've got a huge target share on a weekly basis, pretty much for Tetairoa McMillan. Okay. And then we could be talking about literally 9 to 10 targets a game. He's had a lot of games with 8 or 9 targets where he's been crap. But every time he's had 10 or more, 3 times he's had a big game. So that's the positive. The positive is I don't think they're going to just be able to win games with low-scoring games and run the ball. The negative is he's still Bryce Young, and, this is the best game that he's ever had. But all right, but you can't sit here and say that Tetairoa McMillan doesn't have big weekly upside because we just saw it.
Yeah, that's fair. And he's still an amazing player. So
we're feeling better about it, but not like overreacting.
Yeah.
This is some, huge clue that we're in for a league-winning season. I think we're all kind of in the same place here.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'd say so. Okay. Anything? All right. That was stat number 1.
That was just the first one. So Sean Tucker, we know that he can rumble, and we saw this is like the second time in his career where he's gotten runway to do this, and it's looked really good. The matchup was definitely great, but also I think he played phenomenal, and we saw them go to him more, which is something it's a trend that's been developing over the past 3 weeks. In the second half of this game, 55% snap rate for Tucker, only 1 second half touch for Rachaad White. Tucker had 12 touches and 21 PPR points in the second half. So that's all very interesting to me. We'll see what happens when Bucky gets back. But they seem to be going away from White, which is interesting. I want to talk about Darnold. I want to talk about the Seahawks. Of course, I'm obsessed with them. The chat knows this, so we're going to spend a little bit of time here because this was a really interesting matchup. So first quarterback with 4 interceptions this year is Sam Darnold, who was previously one of the best MVP odd quarterbacks in the league. He was the first quarterback since 2016 with 4 or more interceptions and a dropback success rate above 50%. So he actually played all right. They got to the red zone a lot. This is a rare game to turn the ball over, but not necessarily be completely melting down. The other note on Darnold that I had was that this is per fantasy points data. They chart when a quarterback was moved off of the apex of their dropback. That happened to Darnold 10 times, which I want to go back and watch the film because he actually didn't have a super high pressure rate. So I wonder if some of this was his own doing or by design. But entering this game, his number was 3.9 per game, and it was 10 times, which is by far the highest number for him this year in a game. Only Stafford had a lower rate per game coming into week 11. So that's weird. It could be something about the defensive play calling that was flushing him out. Maybe more defenses will do this. I think that's just something to notice because nobody's really been able to stop this offense lately. So I want to make note of anything here along the way and see how this develops.
Well, you've been talking about you felt like teams might change the way they play Seattle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was kind of watching the game, and I was watching Red Zone, so they're going back and forth. But Greg Olsen, who I think, by the way, I would love to see the Giants hire him as their next head coach because he's a freaking genius. But Greg Olsen was talking about this exact thing. And I wanted to see maybe if there's some data. I was looking at, for example, did the Rams play fewer 8-man fronts than teams usually do? But he was saying teams always want to stop the run, but it's just pride, he thinks. Yeah, you're not tough if you don't stop the run or something, but you should be trying to stop the pass. Yeah. And I think what he was saying was maybe that the Rams were actually doing that. They were trying to take away the pass and let the Seahawks run a little bit. Which is something that Jacob has been talking about. He's wondering if teams are going to start pivoting to that. When I heard Greg Olsen talking about that, I wasn't 100% sure what he said because, they're going in and out of the game. But I was like, whoa, I think Jacob was onto something here. So it's worth looking into.
And we did see a bunch of running in this game. On that note, I've got a few more passing notes, but I just let's flip over to Kenneth Walker here. Outsnapped Zach Charbonnet in 3 of 3 games since the Week 8 bye. Before the Week 8 bye, he was 0 for 5 in healthy Charbonnet games in terms of outsnapping him. So it seems like we're seeing a flipping here. Inside the 5-yard line over the past month, 67% snap rate for Kenneth Walker. He has 4 of 5 running back rushes from inside the 5 over the past month. We finally saw him score in one this week. Before the bye week, the rate was 18% snap rate for Ken Walker and 3 of 12 running back rushes from inside the 5. So definitely that's meaningful. It's, to me, feels like Charbonnet has basically become just a lottery stash type of player. Like if Walker gets hurt, he would be good. But even if Walker got hurt, I think they like the Helani guy, and he would. I think he would be splitting with Charbonnet.
So I just have this one issue with the stat you gave about the 5-yard line, because I had been talking about this over the previous 2 games, weeks 9 and 10. I believe Ken Walker had 3 carries from the 3-yard line, which was encouraging. But then when they got down to the 1-yard line, it was Charbonnet. Now, yesterday, they were at the 1, and it was Walker, and he got the touchdown. But they were in hurry up. They kept all their personnel on the field. So I still feel like if it's not hurry up and it's 1st and goal from the 1-yard line, I still feel like it's Charbonnet. But maybe not. Maybe not.
It might be.
Yeah, maybe not. It's so funny how much I'm tracking this. I'm like watching it because it's a huge deal. It's a huge deal for
for fantasy. Yeah, I'm not ready to buy into it just yet with Walker, though. We'll see, because I think those stats are definitely very promising. He's on the up for me. I'm keeping an eye on him.
Yeah. As for the passing game, this was JSN's 6th straight game with 20 or more PPR points, but it was the first game all year that he did not have a yard per route run rate above 3, which is absurd consistency to hit that rate every single game. Also the first game all year that he did not have multiple catches of 15 yards, which is just crazy. But yeah, still really good game, 9 of 12 in terms of receptions on targets for over 100 yards. So like even in the worst outcome here for Seattle, is still a really, really good game. Insane.
All right, we got to take a break. We'll come back with some more snap counts and things of that nature. I'll tell you about Ricky Pearsall, RJ Harvey's role, Puka Nacua, weird thing on him. We'll be right back on Fantasy Football Today.
Only CBS Sports can bring you big time during the heart of Saturday afternoon. It's big time.
It's big time. It's big time. It's big time.
on CBS and streaming on Paramount Plus.
Rob in the chat says, "Hey Dan, I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me."
Good dad joke for dad.
Yes, it's really good. All right, what else, Jacob?
Really good.
So
I'm a big fan of Rob, so sure, I'll call it really good.
I'm curious to hear your Puka note because I have a Devontae Adams note, and we'll stay in this game there. And then I've got some Bears notes and some Arizona Cardinals notes before we get into our topics.
The Cardinals were so fun.
It's just 2 straight games since the injury. Puka's played about 2/3 of this. No, this week it was 2/3 of the snap. The week before it was 52% of the snaps. Week 10 was a little bit of a blowout, but yeah, he's only had 3 games this season where he's played more than 69% of the snaps. Puka Nacua. That's insane. Some of that's been he's left, I think, 2 games early with injury, but I don't know if it matters. But Puka's not playing a full snap share.
Yeah, they've been incorporating way more of this 3 tight end on the field type stuff, and especially in games like this where they were leading the whole time, they do that a lot, and Puka's coming off the field for those. I don't know if it matters that much either, but it is worth keeping an eye on. So Devontae Adams had the classic 1-1-1 here, 1 catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown. This was the second fewest yards in a game, in a healthy game in his career, his least since his rookie season. His yard per route run rate is down to 1.84, which is the lowest it's been since 2017. Of course, like after a player has 1 yard, their yard per route run rate is going to be like the lowest, but still, like, it's not been super efficient for him all year. He's been kind of dependent on the touchdowns, but we know that there's a good chance the touchdowns will be there on any given week. I guess I'm just wondering if you guys are worried at all about Devontae, if we're seeing any sort of decline. I don't like the fantasy points data is charting in terms of separation would say like, hell no, he's still crushing out there. But he has had like some weird drops that seem uncharacteristic. And to me, like that's sometimes is one of the first things that goes with some of these guys as they get older is they start doing stuff like that doesn't really make sense. Like we've seen it a lot with Kielce this year with drops. I'm excited to talk about Kielce later, Dan, of course. But any thoughts on Devontae Adams?
Well, I mean, my first thought is I pulled you both, and you both said keep Adams over Nico Collins and trade away Nico and not Adams. So this is not great to hear right now. But as far as my concern goes, I think my only concern with Adams is the injury situation that he's dealing with, oblique, and I feel like he's not really fully recovered from the injuries he had earlier in the year. But his role in the offense is great. His role in the red zone is great. It just kind of comes down to us getting the game script we need from the Rams, which I don't know when we're going to get because their defense is so good. But I think he's a fine, solid, like probably in that, like especially given how bad wide receivers have been this year for fantasy, I'd still put him borderline wide receiver 1.
Yeah, I'd take him over Tetairoa McMillan.
Like he reminds me of like the Josh Jacobs of receivers almost.
Sure.
Like, like he's not going to get that many yards and explosive plays, but he is going to catch a touchdown a lot.
Yeah.
Don't know why he's not getting a lot of yards. It really has been pretty much all year, and it's weird. So I think I'm just going to keep starting. I am going to just keep starting Devontae Adams, but it's worth bringing up. It was a very weird game. 8 targets, 1 catch, 1 yard, 1 touchdown.
Yeah.
And
like Jacob said, an uncharacteristic drop or two.
He's 32, and there were 3 32-year-old wide receivers this year, or 4. Or maybe Keenan Allen might be 33. So there was Tyreek Hill, who's out for the season. Cooper Kupp, who's been horrible. Keenan Allen, who's fading, and Devontae Adams, who hopefully is not fading.
Yeah.
All right. What else, Jacob?
I did just check, and the Rams did use like way less base defense against the Seahawks than any other team. The Texans are the D'Amico Ryans. That's the only other team that's come close to matching their rate. So that's interesting to me, and we'll keep an eye on that going forward. So the Bears, I watched every route this morning, and I thought Luther Burden looked great, and that is relevant because Zacchaeus barely played in this game, and it wasn't an injury or anything. So I think we've seen Burden flip him. He basically played Zacchaeus' role. It was 41% in the slot, 61% route rate overall with an 18% target share. I guess I'm not quite at let's go. It hasn't been that exciting of a role for Zacchaeus. Like it hasn't really amounted to much. Burden looks way better. So like maybe it will amount to something for him. But their schedule is pretty tough. I think they'll lean on the ground game as much as they can over the next month or so. So this is interesting. Like, he was used in pre-snap motion 6 times. That's typically Zacchaeus' role. Loveland and Burden each had 6 routes as the pre-snap motion player. No other Bear had more than 2. So I think Ben Johnson is giving him opportunities once to get the ball into the rookie's hands. But just keep in mind that it's not a great passing game right now for fantasy.
They're actually 15th, the Bears, in gross passing yards per game. So it's not bad. Gross passing yards being passing yards just without taking away any yards for sacks. Sometimes, if you look up who's the leader in passing, which team leads in passing yards, they take sacks away. But this is just not accounting for that. 238 passing yards per game. Not too bad. They're 2 yards behind Cincinnati. Now, Cincinnati's had different quarterbacks, whatever. They're 5 yards behind Green Bay. They're ahead of Tampa Bay. Caleb Williams is throwing for more yards per game than Baker Mayfield.
Yeah.
How about that?
There's been a lot of question marks on Tampa's passing game. I want to get into that this week with you, Jacob.
I've got a really bad Baker stat.
Yeah, things are not trending in the right direction there at all.
All right, let me wrap up here with some Arizona Cardinals stuff for you guys. So, Michael Wilson, excellent call by Adam Azer.
I gotta say, I really was.
Yeah?
I had him maybe a wide receiver 3. I was not.
You weren't expecting
Adam.
this?
No one's gonna remember.
No, I appreciate it, but Heath did the same thing. But I wish I had actually been more in on it. But go ahead.
So you said basically what you're saying is the same exact scenario unfolded with you and Heath took all the credit for it, but you were being humble and didn't take the credit for it. Is that what you're trying to say?
Heath gave me all the credit, but I don't think he needed to. Just like Jacob.
Okay. I was just trying to cause some drama.
I appreciate the teamwork here.
Just trying to stir the pot a little bit.
So Michael Wilson, 185 receiving yards on 15 receptions, which is the 5th most receiving yards by an Arizona Cardinal wide receiver dating back to 2000. That's more than Larry Fitzgerald's career high. And if I remember correctly, this is exactly what Adam Azer predicted would happen this week. So that's really impressive.
You did remember that correctly. Yes.
Yeah. So that's, through 3 quarters, he had 154 yards, which is like more than any Marvin Harrison Jr. game. MHJ's only been over 100 twice. So the Jacoby Brissett era has been extremely fun. More completions than any quarterback in any game in NFL history is what Jacoby Brissett just gave us. You look at this passing chart, it's just all over the field attacking. Like the Michael Wilson chart is really cool too. Like, often you'll see the receivers kind of like concentrated in one area of the field, but he was just winning all over the place. And I think you watched some of his film, right, Dan? Like, he's pretty good. I remember I watched all of the Arizona receiver like plays like this past offseason to dig into MHJ. And I was like, if I didn't know who MHJ was, I would just be like, wow, the Cardinals have 2 beasts at receiver. They have 2 really big, strong, talented guys out there, but the quarterback play sucks.
Michael Wilson, Stanford tape, still think is one of like the most underrated tapes of any wide receiver to enter the draft in the last 5 years. He was hurt a lot at Stanford, and people felt, I think NFL evaluators felt like the style he runs route with, he's a really violent route runner. Like, if you watch him, Jacob, I'm sure you noticed watching his tape, like hard cuts and like just hard strides. And this is going to sound weird, but it really is a violent way of route running. But he's really good. Like, this game was phenomenal. First of all, the vertical routes he sells really well. And then like late in the game, like he's selling verts the whole game. And then you'll see him just run a deep curl where like the DB is like falling over, almost like breaking his ankles trying to cover ground on a vertical route that Wilson sells really well. Then he's winning on inbreakers too, because he understands space so well. And like I said, he's a violent cutter when it comes to creating separation. I think Michael Wilson's a really, really good receiver. Like, the problem for a fantasy standpoint is so much of this came in, I don't want to call it garbage time, but like when the Cardinals were trailing by an absurd amount. I told Adam before the show, Jacob, he only had 3 targets until 55 seconds left in the second quarter, Michael Wilson. So that's like not great, I don't think, from that standpoint. And so much of it was done in garbage time, but he's a really good player. And I'm excited about him just because he's finally getting a chance to prove it and get actual targets. And this offense is so much better with Jacoby Brissett than Kyler Murray. Like, they actually can use the middle of the field. And it's insane to say, but like, this is a really bad sign for Kyler's future. I can't imagine any team is going to be giving him much of a chance after this.
Yeah, I'm not quite as optimistic, just because I really feel like when Marvin Harrison gets back, Michael Wilson's going to be a non-factor, and he could be back this upcoming week. Marvin Harrison Jr. left the Colts game in week 6 with a concussion pretty early. Zay Jones in that game had 5 catches for 79 yards on 8 targets. Jones is out for the year. This is exactly why I sort of liked Michael Wilson this week. You had 57 pass attempts. You had an incredible game strip where they're trailing immediately.
Right.
Obviously no one's expecting Michael Wilson to do what he did. How much do you spend on Fab? How much are you getting from him? I think just the question is, what is he when Marvin Harrison Jr. is back? And because obviously Trey McBride isn't going anywhere, I think we're talking about a non-rostered player in 12
Really?
games. I think we're going back to exactly what. I mean, it's hard to say that, but yeah, that's kind of how I feel. I mean, I feel like he's just going to be third fiddle on this team, and he's been scoring 7-8 fantasy points. It might be that again.
Yeah, that's what, and I think that's probably right. When Harrison gets back, maybe it's looking closer to that 7 or 8 fantasy points. Because let's be clear, like he was the design first read target in on a lot of these plays. That'll just be Harrison again when he's back. So that's fair.
I mean, it could be wrong. Obviously,
No,
a performance like this just reminds me that I always forget who it was. It was a Thursday night game. It was the 49ers. The guy had like 200 yards.
What
was his name? It was a few years
for the
ago.
Niners.
Yeah.
Oh, year. I was going to say Kendrick Bourne earlier this year, but you're talking about years ago. I wish I could pick this out. I'd be so happy if I got this right. 49ers a few years ago went off for 200.
40%
Richie James at 100.
Yes.
Richie James, former
100
Giant Richie James, actually. Former Giant Richie James.
and Chief.
That's the game. Whenever I want to discredit someone, I always bring up the Richie James.
That's not fair to Richie James, is it?
No, it isn't. But it does happen sometimes. All right, look, we'll see. He's worth adding for sure. Michael Wilson is rostered in, I think, about 25% of leagues, 27% of leagues, 15% started. Unbelievable game.
The comparison
Yeah.
comparison I would make is like maybe this is kind of like a Jawan Jennings thing where he like kind of came out of nowhere last year, but like anytime I've watched Michael Wilson, I'm like, he's a pretty good player. He's a really physical player. And then maybe we could get some random games where if MHJ isn't healthy or whatever, they do kind of lean on him more than we've seen. And so you kind of throw out all the stuff that we think we know about him. But you're probably right. It's unlikely that he's going to matter, if I had to guess.
Okay, Rico Dowdle, Chase Brown, they both played 82% of the snaps. Woody Marks, 66% of the snaps. Ricky Pearsall ran most of the routes, 75% of the snaps. But among 86 wide receivers who ran 15 or more routes in Week 11, Ricky Pearsall was 14th in average route depth. So I watched all of his routes. I feel like he's a decoy. I feel like he's the clear out guy most of the time. So he had 3 targets in this game. There probably will be some pop games for Ricky Pearsall. He's good and Purdy's good, and but I think until he starts getting more layups, it's going to be tough to trust him. RJ Harvey played 61% of the snaps. We're going to talk more about him later. When you consider that McLaughlin and Bidet each played only 13% of the snaps, that's pretty good. Josh Allen had 3 passing and 3 rushing touchdowns. According to ESPN, that has been done 3 times in NFL history. 3 passing, 3 rushing touchdowns. Josh Allen's done it twice. Otto Graham has done it the other time. And a guy that I'm pretty much done with is David Njoku. He once again had a route participation rate under 60%. So it's not like he's completely phased out, but in that offense, if you're running 55% of the routes and you're the number 2 tight end, it's just probably want to look for better options. All right, buy or sell time. We were going to talk about Tetairoa McMillan. If you missed it, we did that at about the 30-minute mark, the 22-minute mark, and we took it till about the 30-minute mark. It was very good stuff. So let's go to our second buy or sell, which is Travis Kielce from Slumbeard Millionaire, which is very funny. Buy or sell. We should sell high on Travis Kielce coming off 9 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown at Denver. Jacob.
What's the idea exactly? Like what does this mean in practice? Like what are you actually getting for Kielce? I'm curious.
Yeah.
Because like I could see it. I could get down with that potentially, but it needs to be something meaningful, not just like kind of selling to sell. Because I do think that there's a chance that he's going to keep being involved. I said to Dan on Beyond the Box Score last week that it felt like they were just kind of like forcing him the ball to try to get him going, to try to like get the vibes up a little bit before this. But this was coming out of the bye, and it felt like in this game they were trying to get other things working, and they weren't working. And then Kielce was who ended up just being open the most, and that's who Mahomes ended up going to more in the second half. He ended the game with a 29% first read target rate. He forced 3 missed tackles in this game. I thought he looked really good in the second half, and it was
more
like
than he forced all last season.
Yeah, just about. And that was like the only thing that was working. Like I went back and watched all the routes this morning again, because like obviously I've got some bias as I'm watching the live broadcast, and I get a little disappointed. But like there was nothing for Worthy, man. He got blanketed. It's obviously a brutal matchup, but like I didn't see him win a single man coverage rep, and there's a lot of them against the Broncos. And then Rice, I think Rice is going to be able to do his thing. He's still finding his footing. He had a couple of bad drops in this game. And he's doing his thing against zone coverage and everything. I think he's going to be an important part. So that's why I was like, what are you going to, I don't want to get carried away with Kielce. It looks good, but I do think ultimately like Rice's presence as the zone coverage guy is going to cap his upside. And Rice is probably only going to continue to get more and more comfortable and integrated into the offense.
I just want to take a look here. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Let's take a look here.
Claire, if you wouldn't mind. Thank you. This is Travis Kelce's player page on True Media. I'm going to zoom in. Sorry, guys. But I just want you to look at some of the... Where's the zoom? But here we go. Let's take a look at yards per route run. Up to 1.89. And is that prime Kielce? No, but that's second best among tight ends. 9.6 yards per target. That's coming close to his career high, which is in his rookie season or his second season. He missed his rookie season. Yak. Where's the Yak? The Yak is extremely encouraging. Here it is, 6.8. It was 3.8 last year. 6.8, highest Yak since 2016. So at least he's being pretty efficient, really efficient this year. And he actually has a higher target share with Rashee Rice in the 4 Rashee Rice games. It's about 21%. Before that, it was about 20%. So it's about the same, but he hasn't lost target share. And he's having an efficient season. So second best yards per route run at the position, better than Trey McBride. I think only Tyler Warren, if I remember correctly, was better.
Wow.
So sell high. I mean, you could always sell high with a guy coming off a huge game, but I think
I'm not selling.
Probably just ride it out.
Yeah, I don't think he's a sell player. I think Jacob said it best. What are you getting for him at this point? Especially, I mean, maybe if you're in a situation where you have 2 tight ends and you want to play your other, say you have like Warren and Kielce, which is definitely doable in drafts. Maybe you sell him if you can get back a player you can start every week. I just don't know if that's possible. My real question for Jacob was like, is the Chiefs offense stale at this point, schematically speaking? Like,
yeah.
I mean, these numbers with Mahomes, these last 2 seasons or these last 3 seasons now have just been so different than anything we'd seen. And maybe it's just as simple as, well, back early in his career, he had Tyreek Hill, or back early in his career, teams didn't play as much. They played more single high against him. Maybe, but I don't know. I watched this game and I feel like even what they do with Rice doesn't impress me. Like, Rice is a player who in his rookie season was winning on double moves on the outside, was winning vertically, but it's just like they don't use him in that way at all. I know you said Worthy wasn't beating man today. I feel like the best player that I've seen on a snap for snap basis doesn't even play for the Chiefs, in Tyquan Thornton. Quite honestly, no, it's not a joke. Like, every single time he gets an opportunity, he makes a play. So I just don't really understand what they're doing offensively. It just seems like they've been figured out by NFL defenses to some extent, at least.
Yeah, I was just laughing because me and my friends say the same thing about Tyquan.
Yeah, he's awesome. I don't really know why he doesn't play.
A note on the Chiefs is that like these 2 defenses that they've struggled against these past 2 weeks know them very, very well.
True.
You know, the Bills and the Broncos. But like, if you look at the defensive coordinators they still have to face, they've got a matchup against Dallas that looks great. They've got Tennessee, but Denver is week 17. And then they also have Jesse Minter and the Chargers in week 15. They have D'Amico Ryans and the Texans in week 14. They have Lou Anarumo and the Colts in week 12. So like, those are defensive coordinators that I hold a lot of respect for. And I think are going to study the film from these past 2 games and continue to give Mahomes problems, if I had to guess, headaches at least.
Well, yeah, before these 2 games, we were talking about this amazing season that Patrick Mahomes is having and all that. And yeah, he was on fire, but matchups have been tough. I brought it up on Wednesday's show as a sell high because going into this past week, he had Denver twice, he had Houston, and he had the Chargers, and that is tough.
Yeah,
and he can make it work if he connects on the deep balls. But how many deep balls is he going to miss on this year? He's so inaccurate on those throws. He missed on 2 in this game. It could have changed the game. He's just not good at it. You've been pointing this out for a while, guys. He's struggling on these deep balls. Even when he's cleanly protected, whatever, he's just missing.
Yeah,
I've got a sell idea for you. You might be able to flip Travis Kelce for Rondé Gadsden. If a Gadsden person is kind of panicking, Gadsden's on the bye right now.
You prefer Gadsden over Kelce rest of the season?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm really nervous about the Chargers.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, really? Wow, over Kelce.
Yeah.
Okay.
I could be wrong for sure, but yeah, I think there's way more upside with Gadsden. And we'll see on Kelce, but I think that we could get plenty of 5 for 40 games.
Yeah. I just think Chargers O-line looks so bad this week.
All right, let's go to Black Rose here. Buy or sell. Nico Collins is a sell because Davis Mills is feeding him more than Stroud ever will. Dan, how do you feel about that as the guy who foolishly traded away Nico Collins?
I'm so sad about that. I literally did it, and then Drake London got hurt, and now I have no receiver. It's like Michael Wilson. Thankfully, I picked up, and I don't feel good about. But my problems aside, as Jacob outlined here with the statistics that he's put up, there's only been 2 games where the Texans have thrown for over 200 air yards, and both of those were Davis Mills games.
200 catchable air yards.
Sorry, catchable air yards. There we go. That's why we always need Jacob here. The smartest guy we've got. And that's not a good sign. Like, is it a sign that the Texans offense is evolving and their offensive line is playing better? Hopefully, maybe, I don't know. Or is it a sign that CJ Stroud was playing bad football this year? Legitimately bad football this year. I tend to lean more toward that. As far as like Nico with Stroud coming back, I still want to believe in him. He looked awesome. I watched every single Nico rep before the show because I saw this question. He looked awesome this week. Explosive getting in and out of his cuts. Yeah, I thought he did.
Okay, I agree with this explosive getting in and out of his cuts, but where are the wow plays?
There's no wow plays with Davis.
I know, that's
what are you
the
expecting
problem.
wow plays?
Because that's Nico Collins.
Nico Collins, when CJ Stroud was playing elite level football. CJ Stroud hasn't played elite level football though.
But last year too, Nico Collins was elite, making explosive plays. He feels like a better version of AJ Brown to me. It's like you get these slants and
it's a lot of slants. It's a lot of deep or intermediate. I shouldn't even call them deep, like short intermediate curls, slants, in breakers that he's just kind of separating on. But I feel like that's the Texans offense now. Like back in the past, they had Bobby Slowick. They went under center. They ran play action with 6, 5, 7-step drops, hit your back foot and rip something into space to Nico. Now it's like our O-line's so bad, we have to just run quick game the whole time. And so that's why we're seeing so many short targets for Nico. I don't think he's going to be some star if Mills played, but like these types of games where he's getting an insane amount of targets, this one not as much as last week, and 9 for 90 and a touchdown, it seems doable with Mills. The question is, will it be doable with Stroud?
I feel like it's kind of like Drake London's role if we have just like London with Kirk Cousins or whatever.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I've watched every drop back of Davis Mills the last 2 weeks, and I don't really think there's anything that he's doing that CJ Stroud can't. But I do think he played like not even really well 2 weeks ago against Jacksonville, but I thought he actually played pretty well in this game. Just very safe. I don't remember any turnover worthy plays off the top of my head, but there were 55 dropbacks or something like that. He's just thrown. You gave that air yard stat. He's thrown the ball so much. All right, so here's Nico Collins in 2 games against the Jaguars and the Titans with Stroud and with Mills, because I think the matchups are very important here. Mills gave him a 30% target share. CJ Stroud 26.5% target share. But the yards per route run, the yards per target, the ADOT, they were actually better with CJ Stroud. When you look at just overall Nico Collins with Stroud and Mills, it looks like he's been so much better with Mills than he has with Stroud. Here's our second graphic. 2.53 yards per route run with Mills, 1.84 with Stroud. But then you just look at the games that they played. He played the Jaguars, one of the worst pass defense. I know, don't tell that to the Chargers, but one of the worst pass defenses right now. And the Titans, who also stink. And oddly enough, he also faced those two opponents with Stroud. So I think that he's really benefited from these matchups the last 2 weeks. And Davis Mills has benefited from it as well. I guess this is my long-winded way of saying I don't think that Mills is better for Stroud. The target share has been higher, so that might be the case. but I don't think the efficiency would necessarily be better with Mills than it would be with Stroud.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Like, what kind of version of Stroud are we getting? Are we getting the Stroud from this year? It wasn't all just O-line. He was missing throws that he didn't miss in past seasons. I just want to see what we get with Stroud when he comes back. I'm not sold that it's going to be great Stroud.
Look, it could be another week because he's got a clearly concussion protocol.
Oh, yeah, exactly. I don't think he's playing this week because it's Thursday night game.
Yeah, it's against the Bills. All right. Yeah, I think I'm making the case without saying it for selling high on Nico Collins if you can still make trades.
Yeah.
But I don't know. He's still Nico Collins. He's still one of my favorite players. What do you guys think?
I think Mills has done a good job getting the ball out quick, which is something they've wanted Stroud to do. His time to throw was 2.1 seconds this week, which is extremely low. So at first I noticed that he had a low pressure rate this week, and I was like, oh, nice. Maybe Houston's line is playing better. I know some people are optimistic about Ursary, the rookie at left tackle. But then I saw his time to pressure was 2.08 seconds, which is extremely fast. So when they were getting pressure, it was getting there very fast. And I think, so yeah, that's mostly just like Mac Jones kind of, where it's like just getting the ball out extremely quick is helping alleviate pressure. This might just be cope because I believe in Stroud and I want this to come together at the end for Nico and everything. I feel like that stat I gave about catchable air yards might be sort of influenced by Nico playing better and getting these freaking rookies on the field finally, because we know Jalen Noel can get open and Higgins has played better too. And so it's like easier to produce catchable targets and catchable air yards when you're open, when your receivers are getting open, which we aren't getting so much with Xavier Hutchinson and some of the guys that they've been trotting out there this season. So hopefully it can all come together. I don't know. I think it makes some sense to sell Nico if you feel good about the offer, which Dan just did. And I think I wouldn't freak out about where we're at after this week with the Devontae Adams stuff. I think that still makes some sense. I think honestly, it probably is cope to like think that, it's all just going to come together because we know it can fall apart really quick with this offensive line.
Yeah.
We're more or less out of our buy or sell topics, but we were going to spend some time on the Bucs offense, the Packers offense. We talked about Emmanuel Wilson and the Denver and Kansas City. I think we got into the Chiefs offense, but Jacob, what else is on your mind for this show?
I thought RJ Harvey looked okay, looked pretty good. There just was not much room to run at all. I thought the Chiefs defense played pretty well in this game, especially against the run. I think they didn't really respect Bo Nix very much, and we're kind of like, let's see you beat us. So if you watch the Harvey cut up on my Twitter profile, you're going to see like not very much room for him to do anything. So they've got the bye this week. They've got some tough matchups going forward, but I was mostly encouraged by the usage. It's a weird case of like the overall usage numbers don't look super exciting. He's not pushing up to that like 60, 70% snap rate or anything like that. Julian McLaughlin was getting in to get a goal line touchdown. But early on, it was like they were treating him as the starter. And you never know with Peyton. He just has shenanigans that he pulls out, and that might just happen again. And that might continue to just be really annoying. But I did like that, like he was the starter, and it felt like they're building things around him. And with Dobbins out for the foreseeable future, I wonder if coming out of the bye, there's more and more built around him and emphasizing his skill set. So I'm cautiously optimistic about him. And then depending on the news with Bashal Tune, I thought he looked freaking great this week. He was like kind of taking it over. Etienne, I think, is still going to be involved because he's played really well this year. He's important to the team. But Etienne got the started the second drive as well. The third drive, Tootin started. He mixed in on both the first and second drives. And at the time of his injury, he had handled 15 of the past 25 running back rushes, including like a lot of the short yardage stuff. And he was like, at that moment in time, like gashing them and getting them down into the red zone is what was happening, like right when he got hurt. So we'll see, but like that was exciting. Like it looked like everything that we've seen from the skill set standpoint in terms of him being able to navigate traffic and create when there's not much there was showing up. And there were a few plays, if you go watch the cut up, where it's like, oof, that could have been a big play. That was close. It's like the Travion Henderson thing. People were like crapping on Travion Henderson and saying that his efficiency sucks and he sucks and stuff like that based off of like a 30 or 40 carry sample size over the first couple of months. And it's like, that's not enough data. And he doesn't have any long runs because like he hasn't been able to find any rhythm. This is just a very small sample size. And that's kind of where I'm at with Tune is like, he's been really good at creating positive gains. And if he starts to get these long runs, which we know is in his wheelhouse, that's like what everybody was so excited about originally when he was drafted, is his speed. Then all of a sudden he looks like one of the most efficient rushers, which is where Travion Henderson has arrived.
Yeah. All right. Well, you apparently predicted a breakout game for him in week 11.
No, not at all. No.
All right.
I just love him, and I'm excited to see like that he's getting an opportunity because I think he could help their offense. They need it. Like if they can get him and they can get Britton Strange going, they have hope. The Chargers were a mess this week, but like the Jags have looked like a mess a lot this year before this game, and I think it's because they don't have success rate players. Really, they have a lot of kind of like big play players, and Trevor can be erratic. But it's like if they get both of those guys back, I think that Liam Cohen can keep this offense on track.
All right. Well, it's nice to see Dan not in a hoodie. It's good. The heat on over there. I hate this weather. This weather stinks.
This weather's so bad. I woke up today with a massive sore throat, and I'm just like, why?
You're
why do I have this?
You are the sick guy now.
I'm now becoming the sick guy. I've taken over the mantle from you. Not one I ever wanted to inherit by any means.
When you put a stick of butter in your coffee every day,
it's nothing to do with getting sick. A stick of butter is not bad for you. I mean, it's not a stick. I take a little sliver. It's not a stick. I take a small sliver and drop it into black coffee, and that cannot be bad for you. Probably the reason I'm sick or I'm getting sick is because I sleep with a fan on. I just can't not. Like, I just don't know what it is. I can't sleep without a fan.
Really?
Yeah, I need the sound.
I don't have
noise. Understand why this would be making you sick.
Just pushing cold air. I don't know. I don't really know.
It made no sense, Jacob.
Okay.
I focusing on that. I wanted to
60% of the things I say make not related to fantasy football. I hope make no sense.
Yeah. Well, okay. That was a really interesting insight there into Dan's sleep habits. But I don't have a fan in my house. I feel like I probably need one. Like I'm a grown up. I should have a fan in the house. We should we are out of here, and you should come back on Tuesday for Waiver Wire, for Beyond the Box Score. Check it all out at youtube.com/fantasyfootball today. Subscribe to the Beyond the Box Score podcast. And for Dan and Jacob and our producer Claire, I am Adam. We'll talk to you tomorrow. See you later.